Welcome to gCaptain Live. I'm your host, John Konrad. I'm also the founder and CEO of gCaptain. I have no idea how this is going to go, guys. I haven't done the live before. We have a setup here at gCaptain headquarters with a tripod, some lights. We're going to give this a try, but I'm not sure if it's going to sound good and the audio is going to be good. But we're going to do our best, and we promise as we move forward, we're going to fix these issues for you. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you a little update of what we're doing here at gCaptain headquarters in Morro Bay, California. I want to share some of the behind the scenes with gCaptain in the coming days. I also want to go through the top news stories of today. You can read about the news stories at gCaptain, but what we don't do enough of is share the opinion of our editors, and I want that to be part of the live segment. So I'm just going to read a synopsis of each news story and then share my opinion as gCaptain's founder and also as a former mariner. I worked my way up from the training ship at Fort Schuyler all the way up to getting my master's license and sailing on drill ships. And that experience, coupled with, we get a lot of feedback when an incident happens. People on scene give us a call, and I want to share that feedback with you in the form of some of my opinions. Finally, I want an opportunity to interact with you guys. I'm not sure how this works. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get questions from you guys and share those questions, but I want to answer them directly. So if you have a question about a news story or anything I go over, or just a general question, please share it. If we don't get to it this episode, I'm going to get to it in future ones if this trial's a success. I don't know. Bear with us here. All right. So the first news story of today is 12 dead, scores injured in huge blast at Pakistani shipbreaking yard. And just a brief paragraph. At least 12 Pakistani workers were killed and more than 50 injured on Tuesday after a huge blast ripped through an oil tanker at a shipbreaking yard, trapping others inside the vessel, local officials said. All right, so you have these shipbreaking yards in India, Pakistan, Burma are the large ones. These yards don't have advanced equipment. When I worked on tankers, when we were bringing torches in to cut or weld something in a tank, we had gas sniffers and we had gas-free procedures and plans. And then we got a marine chemist who brought special equipment into the ship's hold and gave us a gas-free certificate. Now, these yards have their own procedures, their own policies, and some competent workers at the yard. What they don't have is the advanced equipment. One example here is after the fire started, we don't know if the workers died immediately. We don't know how big the initial explosion was, but we do know that firefighting efforts were hampered. When you have a tanker fire, you want to put foam down on that fire. That layer, if you just put water down in a hose, that oil is going to spread. Think of it at your house. You got a pan with grease on it. If you put water in that grease, it's going to start sparking up. Sparks might light something in your kitchen on fire, but it's also going to move that oil across the deck, create more of a problem. To combat that, we mix the water with foam solution. When we're fighting a tanker fire, those foam form bubbles on top of the oil and block the oxygen. That was not available in this case. So what needs to happen moving forward? Well, we should look at potentially value-added taxes on these. This is, again, just my personal opinion. When a owner brings a vessel into a yard, they should be possibly a tax or some sort of levy to make sure that the proper equipment is there. And I'm just talking basic safety equipment, advanced gas sniffers, foam for the fire trucks. That all needs to be incorporated in the cost of scrapbuilding and deducted from the overall payment the ship owner receives for selling the vessel to the yard. These guys need equipment, and that's the bottom line. I do want to share with you a great book that I read just a few weeks ago, Breaking Ships by Roland Burke. And if you want to know more about what's going on, what is happening at these yards, some of the safety concerns, and there are numerous concerns about safety in this book, but these are smart guys. These are guys who have families, the people working at the shipyards. They don't want to get injured, and they have some interesting procedures to keep safe. So while parts of the book were a lot worse than I had thought before reading it, a bunch of the things were a lot better. So I don't want to continue on. Let's see if I can grab any questions here. Again, I'm not sure how to do that. We're going to work through this as we go on. We got Alex Albert saying hi from South Africa. Hello, Alex. Great to have you here. I love South Africa. My wife and I, we had our honeymoon. We flew into Durban and then went up to, excuse me if I don't get the pronunciation right, KwaZulu-Natal on the northeast side. Beautiful scuba diving. We went there for the scuba diving because it's at the confluence of the Arctic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. You got the hot currents, the cold coming south, the cold currents coming north, and the marine life there is just fabulous. Plus, love South Africa, the people. We went to Kruger. Alex, thanks for coming on. We got Ufuk. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce that. Yaman from Turkey. I haven't been to Turkey yet, but I want to go. I want to see the Bosphorus Straits. I want to check it out. I've been doing a lot of photography lately, and it's on numerous lists. Istanbul, specifically the most photogenic places in the world. And Marcelo, hi from Brazil. I worked down in Brazil for 6 months when I was working on a semi-submersible. Love Brazil, and I'm glad people from around the world are joining us. But I want to move on to the news. If any of you have questions about the shipbreaking, please enter them right now. And otherwise, let's go on to the next story. All right, the next story is world's biggest shipping line wants more mergers after Japan. And again, I'm not going to tell the whole story. You have to go to gCam, read it. Just a short synopsis. Maersk, owner of the world's largest container line, says mergers like the combination of its three main Japanese rivals provide relief to an ailing industry that has been characterized by overcapacity. Nippon, Mitsui, and Kawasaki said on Monday they plan to merge, giving them control of 7% of the world's container shipping trade. It's the latest example of industry measures to create scale in an effort to adapt to a world in which freight rates have been under pressure since 2007. Maersk Line's chief CEO, and this is the part that gets interesting, who also runs the Maersk Group, said last month the Copenhagen-based company will stop buying new ships and instead try to expand through takeovers. So the Maersk has been on a building spree the last few years. First there were the Emma Maersk, we're going back about 10 years, and then these giant E-class vessels. Maersk flew me to South Korea to see these enormous vessels, and what they were trying to do is be the Walmart of shipping. And you get, with economics, the more you can put on one ship, there are a lot of cost savings there. And that's what they were trying to build their way to become the biggest in the world. But that building really led to overcapacity. This is the first time in world history that a specific set of things is happening. Oil, the price of oil has plummeted. I worked offshore, and a lot of my friends are out of work right now. A lot of the oiling rigs are laid up. The ship I helped build in South Korea is only 5 years ago is already laid up. A $750 million drill ship was recently sold for $60 million. That's because the price of oil is down. We built too many rigs. When I started on rigs, 2001, there were 34 of the drill ships in the world, the largest, biggest ships. Now in 2016, there are over 134 of these ships. We built a lot of capacity, and that overcapacity is what's causing the main reason for the price of oil going down. But we also have shipping. Shipping is down. Now, always in the past, as price of oil goes down, it costs less to manufacture goods, it costs less to transport the raw materials to the factories, and it costs less to transport the final product from the factories. So as oil has gone down specifically, manufacturing has gone up. There have only been a few times this hasn't been the case, and that is because those times interest rates were high. So right now we have a trifecta, if you say, very low interest rates, shipping down, and oil down. This is unprecedented. Now, the problem here is overcapacity. There are too many ships. Maersk saying, hey, we're not going to build anymore. This is great news for everyone except the shipyards, which are struggling. But the bigger question, and getting into the opinion section of this article, is why do they need to be the biggest? Maersk has said for many years they want to become the biggest, and they've become the biggest, and now they want to continue to become bigger. Well, the less players and the fewer number of large players, obviously there's more they can do with pricing. All right, basic competition. Now, I don't believe Maersk is looking for a monopoly. I don't think a monopoly is possible in the shipping world, and that is not a concern. But what is possible is this new theory of too big to fail. So you look at the financial crisis in the United States, and some banks got bailed out and some didn't. Right? When you build and become a large entity, such an entity that the world economy is really on your shoulders, and if something fails, factories and workers are going out of jobs, the government can come in and bail you out. This happened it was in the Hanjin debate here. So Hanjin recently went bankrupt. And a lot of people at Hanjin, what they were doing at the last minute was talking to the government saying, we need a bailout. We are a South Korean shipping line. We're a huge player in the economy of South Korea. Help us out here. And the South Korean government said, hey, if we help you out, then the next guy, what's preventing him from building more ships and taking all these enormous risks if we're going to go in and bail them out? And the South Korean government, it's a little more complicated than this, but failed to provide enough help to save Hanjin. And now all these ships and containers are stuck out in the ocean, and it's been an enormous mess. It was our number one story for many weeks. Well, if you can get a lot bigger than Hanjin, and Maersk is a lot bigger, it enables you to take risks knowing that if your company fails, the governments are going to step in and help you. So if someone's going to help you, why not take a larger risk? Because risk is tied with rewards. And I don't want to get too big into economic theory here, but I believe that's what's happening with Maersk here. Let's get bigger, stronger, and get so big that if something happens to us, and shipping's volatile, the world countries are going to come in and help us out. And again, that is just my opinion, not the opinion of gCaptain, but it's a smart move by Maersk, but a risky world for the world economy. Let's see if we have any more questions here. Now, as we do this, please come in and say, I'd like you to simplify it a little bit, or I'd like more in-depth talk about various things in these articles. I got a lot to talk about, but I want to keep these short and to the point, and that's why I'm looking for comments. We have Rene Osario from Panama. Rene, my son is being Mariano Rivera for Halloween. Halloween was yesterday, and he's doing a big school project. We're reading Mariano Rivera's book, The Closer, and finding out that Mariano grew up right by the Panama Canal. My son really wants to go down and visit, do some baseball. I haven't seen the Panama Canal yet, so we're really happy to have you here from Panama, and it's another place that's high on my list. We have Wade from Texas and Leona from Tampa, and Alex here says, I 100% love your organization. I hope he's talking about gCaptain. Funny you talk of that. Got an interview with Maersk Line tomorrow for a cadet position. I wish you the best of luck, Alex. They're a great organization to work for. And if anyone else is looking for positions, go to jobs.gcaptain.com. Our job board has a lot of open positions right now, because I know a bunch of you are struggling with the state of offshore and shipping being down at the same time. All right, next question here. Oh, so that's why Maersk wants mergers. Okay, they want other companies to merge so they're bigger, stronger players and less competition. And they want to merge themselves to expand, to become bigger. And bigger in the modern world is safer. Too big to fail. There have been a few books written about that, and that's what's going on. Next story, U.S. Navy's newest littoral combat ship damaged again in Panama Canal. So maybe Rene was down there by the canal and saw the Navy ship going through. This is I believe, a trimaran hull. It's a really interesting ship. Let me read what happened. Under the control of the local Panama Canal pilot, the ship impacted the center lock wall and sustained an 18-inch long crack between her port quarter and transom plates. Commander Ryan Perry with the U.S. 3rd Fleet said, the crack is located 8 to 10 feet above the waterline and possesses no water intrusion or stability risks at this time. So that's good news. Obviously, if you're going to have a crack like that, above the waterline is best. The second best is well below the waterline, where you could get divers in and some things. The worst cracks are the ones right on the waterline, for various reasons I won't go into. But this is a new ship design that is plagued with problems, and which is really interesting because the shipyard that made these ships, built these ships, is one of the best in the world, Austal. They do a great job. But the Navy does the design themselves. And here's where I go into my opinion again. The Navy design, I believe, is flawed in this case. So you have prior cracks in this particular vessel. I believe the ship was actually coming back. It had gone to San Diego through the canal. Now it was going back to get repaired because of a previous cracking incident. But that wasn't the worst incident. The ship experienced 2 engine room failures that caused a total of 24 hours dead in the water. That's a major problem on not only a ship, but a combat ship that has to be ready time of battle. This is the first LCS casualty within the last year. Now we go into some of what are the design flaws that are causing this. One major design flaw that experts have been talking about since the design was proposed, and people of Austal have told the Navy, is this ship has no bridge wings. So for those not familiar with how a ship is designed, you have the bridge where the helmsman steers and the officer of the watch commands, and then you have bridge wings extending out the side so you can go in maneuvering areas, tight maneuvering like the Panama Canal. You can go out and walk to the edge of the ship, you're still up high, and look down and see the side of the ship. Otherwise, things have to be done by radio and call out and video cameras, which aren't as good as the pilot getting up there and looking down. So I don't believe this is the Panama Canal pilot's fault in this case. Again, that's my opinion. I think that's a major problem there, a lack of bridge wings on this Navy combatant. But the major problem here is lightweight aluminum construction. This is a command decision by the Navy. So we used to build these huge, powerful battleships down in Long Beach, California, a few hours from gCaptain headquarters here. Is this Iowa-class battleship. They had steel, I think 16 to 18 inches thick. That steel, what prevents a missile from penetrating a ship or crack damage is steel. There's another great book, The Tank Ship Traumedy, by Dr. Jack Devaney, which talks about this. There's no compensation for steel. Steel is what gives durability. Good steel. It has to be good steel. But the U.S. Navy always gets the best materials. Now, aluminum is great material. The thing, aluminum is it's lightweight. The advantages, it's super lightweight. The disadvantages are it's more difficult to construct, a little more difficult to weld and deal with. That's why you need a great yard like Austell. And it can become brittle. And the number one problem, which we haven't seen yet in the LCS class, is galvanic corrosion. So if you have any stray currents going through an aluminum hull, you can eat a hole or a crack in the side of an aluminum hull very quickly. But the biggest problem with aluminum in a Navy ship is it's not that strong. Missiles, bullets, that sort of thing can penetrate. As you see, the ship just bumped into the wall of the Panama Canal, and now you have a large 18-inch crack in the side of the ship. What will happen if a missile hits this crack? Now, I'm going to get a lot of negative feedback from the Navy. I've had this debate. The Navy flew me to Bahrain a few months ago, and I was talking in a room with all 2, 3, 4-star admirals and representatives from all the navies, friendly navies around the world. And I didn't talk about that. That wasn't my speech, but I was talking with some of the Navy folks there, and we got in this debate. The Navy thinks lighter is great for a few reasons. One, it's fuel efficient, and the Navy has a federal mandate for greener ships. They're pioneering biofuel, they're pioneering efficiency, and lighter ships do less emission. All right, that's one thing. But more importantly, the Navy has looked to, they have these CWIS systems, these Gatling guns that can track missiles. They have missiles, surface-to-air missiles that can shoot down other missiles. These are electronic countermeasures to prevent them getting hit in the time of war. But another defense that the Navy thinks is very important is speed. You need, if there's an incident, you need to get to that incident quickly in order to prove effective, and you need a lot of maneuvering room and speed to put yourself in the best scenario. So that's what the Navy's really looking at. Hey, if we're slow because we have too much steel, we're going to be a sitting duck. We can't outmaneuver the enemy vessels. And that's what's pushing these aluminum craft. Now, aluminum can be built very good, and no doubt Austell's doing a great job from everything, the feedback I'm hearing. But the design, the actual architecture, the initial design has to be flawless with aluminum, and the maintenance has to be flawless going forward. So that's what my thoughts on that subject are. I'm going to see if there are any more comments here. Will Lopez, hello from the port of Los Angeles. How you doing? I'm just up the coast at gCaptain headquarters here in Morro Bay. So Abuela is close to us. Jay Niles. Jay's one of my favorite people. He's the chief in charge of the Morro Bay Coast Guard Rescue Station here. Morro Bay, where gCaptain headquarters is the third most dangerous inlet in the continental U.S. And Jay is our guardian at that. He's in charge of the Coast Guard station. They have these surf boats that go out, and they can totally flip upside down and right themselves. And if anyone sailed on a ship or a boat down the coast of California, I know you appreciate Jay and what his guys are doing at just a stellar job. Thank you for putting in here, Jay. George, simple use aluminum for the hull for a billion-dollar vessel. At this point, the USS Littoral needs reinforcement with the use of Armor X paint. I don't know much about Armor X paint. I can't think of a paint that I've used that's going to solve a major crack like this, George. But there's new technology out there, and I'll look into this Armor X a little more. All right, it only shows me 4 comments at a time. I don't know where the previous comments, but again, next episode, I'm going to look into that for you and try to answer more of the questions. If you have a question I miss, I'll write it down afterwards and hope to answer it next. All right, next story, Port of Oakland reports huge decline in diesel emissions. The study showed that diesel emissions from trucks serving the Port of Oakland declined 98% between 2005 and 2015, while ship emissions dropped 75%. The figures make for a 76% decrease in total diesel emissions at the Oakland seaport. All right. I am an environmentalist. I work on ships. I've worked on oil rigs, but I believe in the environment. That's me personally. But I think all of us as mariners, we spend a lot of time in port towns and we're breathing this air. And for Oakland to go in and do a 76% reduction in the amount of particulate matter in the atmosphere, that's going to help all of us who work at ports, work on ships going into ports. And it's a great thing. But what's another interesting, as I move into the opinion here, is a considerable amount of this has been from trucks, retiring old trucks and requiring new trucks to meet emission standards. Right? One thing the United States does very poorly is intermodal transportation. So these large ships come from China. LA Long Beach is our biggest port. Oakland's another large port. And then these containers have to be put on trucks and trains. All right? Trains are significantly less efficient. They're a big polluter per ton mile than ships. But trucks are just horrible. They put out so much bad stuff in the atmosphere. That's one problem. Second problem is they cause a lot of traffic. So more roads have to be built. And those roads, if you go down to LA, they're taking over the whole city. And number 3 is roads aren't designed for heavy materials. They're originally built for cars. There's a lot of maintenance that has to be done on roads and particularly bridges. You know, as we've had some bridge incidents here in the United States in the past couple of years, a lot of this is because just the sheer weight of the cargo moving on bridges. What has to be done is more of a European feeder system and short sea shipping we're going to talk about here. MARAD's been pushing it for a while, but unfortunately MARAD's too weak at this point to really push it forward. And there's a lot of debate on this. I'm sure I'm going to get comments from some industry saying it can't happen in the United States. I'm an optimist. I think it can. But in Europe, you go to, I went into Hamburg. You have these Rotterdam I've been to. You have these large ships. They're all floated to feeder ships, tugs, barges, and brought it up and down the coast. That's what needs to happen in the United States. And what's interesting about this Port of Oakland is it really shows that if you can reduce the truck traffic, if you can make the trucks more efficient or, in my opinion, get rid of them altogether, then you're going to have cleaner air. Cleaner air is going to be good for all of us. All right. I don't know if we have questions about that, but I really want to move on to the next one, the final story we're going to be talking about today. First unmanned and fully automated offshore vessel planned for 2018. This is a gCaptain headline this morning, November 1st. The UK's Automated Ships Limited and Norway's Kongsberg Maritime have teamed up to build what they claim will be the world's first MOUs for the offshore vessel. It will be designed and built in Norway beginning in January 17th. I apologize for the skip there. I don't know how to pronounce the Norwegian name of this vessel. But if all goes to plan, the vessel could enter service as the world's first full-size unmanned ship as early as 2018. So again, we're talking about a hugely controversial topic. The biggest safety problem with ships now, I was in South Korea about a year ago, 2 years ago. I was looking at the Triple E class ships. I was also looking at some vessels that were even bigger. The Peter Sheltie all-seasons vessel, which has since been renamed. I forget the new name. Just enormous ships. But the ship I was looking at that time was 300 feet longer than the United States' largest aircraft carrier. On board an aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy, these giant moving airports, we have between 5,000 and 6,000 sailors. This ship I was looking at was 300 feet longer, about 100 meters longer, yet it was operating with 24 people. This is such a huge difference. And when we looked at piracy off the coast of Somalia, everyone was saying we need this equipment, we need that equipment, we have to send the military in, we have to arm ships, and all of that played a crucial part. But what happened to really stop that was third-party security teams who are armed, but having those extra men on deck with binoculars, see the threat longer away, be able to assess the threat, and put into effect these countermeasures. We have a Kirby tug leaking fuel right now in British Columbia. If there were more people on that ship, that tug, they would be able to better respond to this oil flow. So this is a real question. One of the biggest problems with safety that we have in the maritime industry, and we're losing on average of one large ship a week. That's the casualty. gCaptain can't report on this because when a ship disappears, we don't have the information. But it's just around that point, around 50 ships a year. We don't know what's happening, but we do know that more men are needed on board these ships. But men and people are very expensive, and ship owners don't have a lot of extra money, especially like Maersk was saying, the shipping's down, the amount they're able to charge for cargo is really down. So this is a big problem in the industry. A solution here is the automated ships. Hey, why don't we put no one on board? Make it fully automated, and a lot of these plans have a mariner or a watch team shoreside, and it's like a bridge simulator. They're driving the ship from a simulator shoreside. Can they handle the navigation? And the answer to that is yes, they can. But can they handle the unexpected that takes manpower? If this Kirby tug, for example, its barge had no oil. It had already discharged its cargo. So this is remnant cargo and the fuel of the tank causing this major problem right now in Canada. So who's going to fight a fire on board the ship? Who's going to put out the oil booms? That's the question I have. Yet even with those questions, and my opinion here is this is good. I support the automated. I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback from guys out of jobs saying, hey, how can you support reducing manning lower? I don't support reducing manning. I want these automated features and additional men. But in order to get better safety systems, better ECTA systems, better monitoring and control systems, we need a reason to push that technology. I was talking to the CEO of Inmarsat in London a few months ago, and he said, whether this succeeds or fail, whether we ever send autonomous ships out or not, this is worth doing because we will learn and we will push innovation. Now, this particular vessel is going to be in a harsh environment, the North Sea off Norway, but it's going to be in a safe environment. They're going to test it. They're not going to I doubt would put hazardous cargo in the beginning. So they're going to learn from this. And I love Kongsberg. Kongsberg is one of my favorite companies. I operated the Kongsberg dynamic positioning system for years. I opened their engine room system. And we also have Rolls-Royce working on this with another fabulous company that I love. So you have some of the best minds working on this, and I pray it won't come to totally autonomous vessels, but I know whether it does or not, this is going to bring more technology that's going to help us do our jobs. But my official opinion is technology is good. We still need the boots on deck. All right, so that's the final article. Let me see if there are any questions before I talk just a little bit about what gCaptain's up to. Ali Mortada says, what about rays to shut off incoming missiles? I assume he's talking about the CWIS system of naval defense. The Navy is working on a laser system. I don't know what he means by rays here in the comment, but yes, the Navy is working on lasers to fight off these missiles, and it's a really cool article. We got video. Go to gCaptain, search U.S. Navy laser system. Awesome stuff. You got to see the video. So yes, they're working on that too already. George says, hi from Greece. Hi, George. Greece is awesome place. I love the history of the shipping, the shipping families in Greece, how they've been around for such a long time, really help each other and really have that knowledge going back centuries on how to deal with the ocean environment, because this technology is just one thing. All right. We're also a industry of tradition. We can't forget the lessons that have been won in blood through the maritime incidents. And that's a really troubling thing for me. The El Faro chief engineer went to my school, SUNY Maritime. I met his wife, I met his father, and that was a tragedy that had a lot of things similar to it than the Marine Electric incident many years ago. A lot of the lessons haven't been learned. Same thing with the industry. I wrote the book on the Deepwater Horizon, the big oil explosion in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, Global had an incident many years prior, and the Coast Guard came out and said, we need one person in charge. That person needs to be the captain. Transocean ignored those, and whether it's for some good reasons, it's a drilling operation and you want a drilling expert. I'm not getting the debate between captain and driller, but I'm saying one person in charge, that person makes all the decisions. That's a good thing. It's a lesson that was forgotten. And Greece has so much tradition and so much tight-knit family and grouping. And you can, they run the conference every 2 years. And it's something I encourage everyone to do. I try to do it a lot myself, is visit the different cultures. Talk to the different mariners, whether it's Greece or the United Kingdom or Panama or China. We really need to learn from each other, guys, and we do that by attending these conferences and going to these events in places like Greece. The next big event is North Shipping in Norway. I highly suggest that one, and great stuff. Any other questions here? Again, I have a flood of questions on this. I love it, and I just can't see them. Facebook is only showing me 4. I'm going to figure it out, though. All right, finally, I wanted to share an item really quick. We have Club gCaptain. It's $10 a month. My colleague here, Mike McDonald, puts together this awesome newsletter every week of the best gear, the best information, and the best news articles of the week. We cover all the shipping stuff and as much information as we can on gCaptain. We don't capture it all, though. If you want all the news, all the information, you need the gCaptain plus the club membership. I know it's a cost, but it's the very first thing we've ever charged for on gCaptain, and $10 a month, we believe it is a reasonable amount to pay. But one of our club members wrote this book, and it's just amazing. He's a member of gCaptain Club, a community member, Ari McDermott. Deadly Straits, a novel. If you love James Bond as much as I do, if you know who Vesper is, and know what the 007 means and things like that. I'm a bit of a nerd and a geek. I love stories like this, but this one's about shipping. Now, there are tons of books, mysteries and thrillers about shipping. The difference here is Bob McDermott's been on ships. He was a marine engineer, graduated Kings Point, and for many years worked in shipyards as a surveyor, and this guy really knows this stuff. So the difference here, it's a great story, but also it's true. And if you've been on ships, you'll say, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. I wanted to share that. And finally, what are we doing in gCaptain? Well, we're getting ready for 2017. I want to do a huge thank you to all of you who did our readership survey a few weeks ago, telling us where you work and your demographic information. That information is going to be compiled into a media kit for our advertisers and who are really the supporters of gCaptain, so we can continue to offer free stuff to you like this live. But now I have a new survey, and that one was, hey, who are you guys? And this one is more, what do you guys want? What are we going to put our efforts into in 2017? So I'm going to put a link under this video, hopefully, if I can figure out how. But if you just scroll down on Facebook or go to gCaptain.com and scroll down, I believe, to Sunday's post, there's a letter from me, John Konrad, gCaptain founder, asking you to take a quick, it's 10 questions. It should take you no longer than 5 minutes. And that's really going to help us figure out where to move next, what new features we're going to put. Do we want more video? Do we want more articles? Do we want more groups in the forum? That's the sort of thing. Let me see here what else we got before I sign off. And if you guys have any tips, saying I'm looking down too much, I'm not an audio visual expert. I know there are some guys here who are into photography and cameras. If you think the sound needs to be improved, or we looked into it. I considered wearing sunglasses. I actually got some. I'll put them on real quick, just so you couldn't see me looking down and think I wasn't engaged with you. But we decided, because we're indoors, not to do that. But we're looking for tips. The lighting's weird or something's unusual. You want me to keep it shorter, go into more. Please let me know. And as the episodes move on, the one thing I will guarantee is they'll get shorter, because you're busy, I'm busy, and we're taking up most of gCaptain, a huge room in gCaptain headquarters in order to produce this. And we display some of the guys who work here, so I want to keep it shorter. Mr. Lopez says, have you heard any info about the sale of Ports America? Last word was a Canadian company, or the Yildirim Group from Turkey were the front runners. I have not heard anything. I don't have any live updates. I do have a little information that I've heard, but I can't share it in live until we verify it. I want to make sure that the information we give you is either my opinion or factual information. I don't want to speculate on rumor. We have a long process of looking at the information and then making sure it's corroborated. I'm saying that wrong. That it's verified, that it's true. So I need to hold off on that. I hope you understand. Any thoughts on year stand down at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy? I have a ton of thoughts on that, but we would be here for an hour if I started talking about that. There are two groups. The groups that say, hey, we got to support Kings Point and continue moving focus where we are now. And there's the group that says, hey, shut it down. Shut down Kings Point. It is a taxpayer burden. I am very much in the former group. I am a big supporter of Kings Point, the state maritime academies. And here's why. I know we're in budget crisis. I know we spend too much money in this country. I don't want this to get into political, but I know we have to spend less in this country. That's obvious to everyone. But U.S. maritime money spent is a small self. And so some people have said I'm selfish, saying more for me, but it's not for me. It's for my brothers and sisters out on the ship. It's for the good of this country to have a strong merchant marine, to have ships, and to support shipping and officers. So I support more funding for Kings Point, more support for Kings Point, and I would love to bring back GMATs, which was the extended learning part of Kings Point, where mariners actually went there at reduced tuition and got a lot of their ECDIS training and something like that. And I'm not going to go into it too much, but I think MARAD has really dropped the ball here. The current maritime administration is doing so much better than the previous. Again, this is my opinion, but they're really looking at the ship owners, the high-level money guys. If you go to the MARAD website right now and you look at their press releases for the last year, 2 years, there's nothing in there for the mariner. And what does the mariner need, especially in this time of trouble, is training. If we're going to be the best, if we're going to get out of this slump in the U.S., we need training. The training should be federally subsidized. We have guys coming up the hawse pipe from lower positions. They're putting a card to get the training they need to be a mate. Right now you have a program MARAD runs, and I don't want to go into it. I'll bring it up another time, where you sign up for this program, and in times of war, the Coast Guard and the Navy is going to call on you. Well, where's the maritime benefit? I'm signed up because I'm patriotic, but I think the benefit, you sign up for that with MARAD, and the benefit to you is you get so many hours of free training at a graduate program at Kings Point, at a graduate program federally funded by MARAD. And I really want to say, I know we have a lot of listeners at MARAD. I love what you guys do. I love that you're pushing, and you're not getting much support from the broader administration. I know your job's hard, but we need more for the mariner at MARAD, and we needed to start with training. So that was a great question there, and I'm not going to get it. I know I avoided the specifics of the C term, but that's just because it would be a very long live video cast. And Daniel says, ha, 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 sunglasses. He didn't say if you liked my sunglasses, Daniel. Christina says, Cristino Rodi from Chief Engineer from Brazil asks, how is your vision about this worldwide maritime crisis all over the world? And I want to end with that question. Everything in shipping is cyclical. I'm an optimistic person. I think 2017, we're not going back to the boom years of 2008, but those hurt us. It was the overbuilding that brought us to this situation. But I think there's going to be a rise in the number of jobs, and things are going to calm down. We might go through more turmoil like the Hanjin. We might see another few shipping companies fail in order to get that point. But the bottom line is this is cyclical. We're at the trough. I don't think we're going too much lower, and it's got to come up for there. I get a lot of people asking, what should I do? I'm out of a job. I'm uncertain about the future. You have two options. You can go to school and get a job outside the maritime industry. That's going to be that's the safe option. But you guys are here, you're listening to this live cast because you're mariners, because you love ships as much as me. But more important than that, you have years of experience and training on board ships, and that's worth something. That's worth more than a college education. And if you transfer outside the industry, that experience is, a lot of it's gone, not all of it. You learn a lot of life lessons on a ship. But my advice is, I know it's painful. I know it's added expense when people are out of work, but training, training, training. And if you can't afford to go to training, you read books, you read gCaptain, you ask questions. This is your opportunity. Think of this as the heavyweight fight, all right? The seventh inning, you're the Chicago Cubs, and you're down in the seventh tonight. I hope they're not. But what do? You give the pep talk. But then you lose that game, you go in and you train more, you get better. So that's my hope for you guys, is spend this time, this downtime, really working on your trade, all right? Read books and do training and figure out during this time, think of this as a break, a little rest in order to improve training. Again, I'm John Konrad, founder of gCaptain. Please go take the survey, read more articles. I don't know if we're going to have a show tomorrow. I really hope so. Again, this is just a test, but it's been great. I've loved the questions. Thank you.